Week 4 is here and the injuries continue to come through thick and fast. So Ed and I here with you to talk about some streaming options for your Week 4 fantasy lineups. Start off with that injury report though, Ed, and it seems to be like just a consistent flurry at the minute, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's bad news seems to be coming out most days. A couple of season enders as well, which is horrible. But for the player, I mean, horrible for us as fantasy managers, but slightly more horrible for the players.
So first up, I mean, we spoke about him on the main show, but James Conner is not absolutely out for the season, but after undergoing surgery, it's quite likely we don't see him again. So we need to look to pivot from there. We spoke about Trey Benson on the main show as well. So he's someone to potentially consider. Tyrone Tracy out 2 to 4 weeks with a shoulder injury. So that makes way for Cam Scatterby, who we'll talk about later, and in our DFS show. Najee Harris, possibly the worst start he could have had to his Chargers career after it seemed like such a great move for his career, for fantasy as well. The eye injury that kept him out of preseason, that had the knock on to the start of the year, and now he's out for the season with an Achilles tear. CeeDee Lamb, he said earlier in the week he was going to be making it to week 4. I think we all knew that was kind of showmanship talk. You don't make it back from a high ankle sprain that quickly. So he is listed as doubtful. We know that means he will trend towards out very soon. Mike Evans and hamstring, we've said before, phrases we don't like to hear together. He's looking to be out for potentially 3 to 4 weeks after undergoing an MRI scan. Chris Godwin, it was trend. I don't think we ever thought he was trending towards actually playing this week, but he's been trending in a positive direction. He was downgraded from a full participant on Wednesday to a did not practice on Thursday. He's a watch this space, hopefully next week, unless you've got lots of shares of Emeka Egbuka like we do. So then maybe you're hoping that goes on a little while longer. And then the QB trauma continues. We know Joey B is out for the season. Just thought I'd say it one more time for you. You've still got Browning behind you. You've not completely fallen out with him. Jaden Daniels.
There's no other quarterback to put behind me.
Lamar Jackson, baby. Jaden Daniels has just been ruled out as well. Terry McLaurin is also going to be missing this week. So I don't know what happens there for Marcus Mariota. JJ McCarthy also out with ankle injury for 2 to 4 weeks. Not a huge surprise. That was reported. So we did expect to see him this week. So, Ed, especially at quarterback, we might need to do some pivoting again. If you're finding yourself needing to pick someone up because you went for Jake Browning last week and that made you look silly, who are we going for in week 4?
Yeah, a few options for you. Let's start off with Bryce Young. Just 21% rostered. He's had a mixed opening 3 weeks as Bryce. The Panthers have from a fantasy perspective, he's only broke 20 points against the Cardinals in week 2. He didn't really need to do much against the Falcons last week as the defense played lights out to shut out that Falcons offense. Up against the Patriots this week, which is why I'm recommending him. They've conceded the 4th most passing yards so far this season. So Bryce Young could be someone worth starting this week. Geno Smith, 37% rostered. After his 3 interceptions against the Chargers in week 2, things weren't looking good for Geno. But he threw for 3 touchdowns against the Commanders and was QB4 last week. Now, this was some proper garbage time score padding, but he does seem to have developed a decent rapport with Trey Tucker. And a bit like Bryce Young, he's got good opposition this week up against the Bears, who've struggled on defense, also giving the 8th most passing yards across the first 3 weeks. And Justin Fields, final consideration, highly rostered, but hasn't been recently started, well, last week anyway, because he was going through the concussion protocol. He's one to watch closely. He needs to make it through that protocol to play on Monday against the Dolphins. However, he was a full participant in practice yesterday. And in his 2 starts, it's been a bit Jekyll and Hyde. He was QB2 in week 1 against the Steelers and then QB35 against the Bills in week 2, admittedly leaving the game early, but still lacking that consistency. However, if he starts on Monday, expect him to put up a decent score against that stuttering Dolphins defense, who've improved since a horrible week 1, but still look bang average.
Yeah, Justin Fields is an odd one because he was down to about 52% rostered at the start of the week. So I've seen strange people were dropping him rather than trying to stash him on IR during that window. And yeah, Geno Smith, that match against the Bears is very tasty, which is why he's one of our starts of the week this week as well. And spoiler alert, we'll be talking about him on the DFS show tomorrow as well. We know the tight end position is also kind of a little bit sparse at the moment with players underperforming and George Kittle out. But before we get to tight ends, please do take a moment to subscribe, to like, and to give us a share as well. We will be bringing you DFS show and then each week our preview and review shows as well. So streaming tight ends then. I mean, we have several leagues where we stream tight ends every single week. We have some leagues where I went all in on George Kittle, so I'm going to be pivoting until he is back. A couple of players we've mentioned quite frequently, and they're players that I've checked, Ed. They're not rostered in many of our leagues at all, so there's no point looking. But are available in more leagues than I would have expected. So Harold Fannin, available in 38% of leagues, plays Detroit, who are given the we'll get my words out, the 5th most fantasy points per game. That's very easy to say, to tight ends. And Mark Andrews just carved them up last week as well. He's had a couple of quiet weeks, but if he's available, he could help you out this week. Hunter Henry, Drake may find it frequently the week before. And he has Carolina, who are given up 15 fantasy points per game to tight ends, which is the 8th most in the league. Hunter Henry will have ups and downs. I think most of the Patriots receivers will, but we've seen what can happen when that clicks. Next up, I've gone for a player that is a bit more of a punt and is widely available in case you are scratching around a little bit more for tight ends. So Mason Taylor is a dart throw at best, really, but plays Miami. We've spoken that they are an improved trajectory recently, but 3rd most fantasy points to tight ends amongst all the teams at the moment, 17.23. So he could give you a reasonable floor, but once again, is a riskier option. And then a player that I think we were kind of softening on for a bit. He sat out last week. Sean Payton is bullish on Evan Engram having a role in this Broncos offense. And he has the Bengals this week, given the 4th most fantasy points against tight ends, 16.37. So if you're in a tight spot, Evan Engram, if he's available, could help you out as well. Are you set at tight end everywhere, Ed, or are you going to have to do a little bit of pivoting week in, week out at the moment?
No, I picked up, some shares in Juwan Johnson and Hunter Henry, which has set me fair in a few leagues. I'd be wary of Evan Engram. I mean, I know the Bengals are terrible on defense, but the Broncos have looked poor on offense. I mean, like last season, Bo Nix has started terribly. He needs to get to October to maybe start playing properly. I'm sure it'll happen on Monday night, but yeah, they've not looked great so far.
I think it's important to me. It's probably one more for the main show, but with so many kind of veteran players not having a preseason, it is week 4. People start to click a little bit more as well, isn't it? As we kind of saw last year as well. So it'll be interesting what we get this week from various players. We know, Ed, what is the only way to select your defenses for fantasy football? It is to stream them. So, Ed, we always defend that as a stance. So let's get defensive once more. For week 4, who have you got for us?
Yeah, I thought I'd select a few different defenses, different rosterships. It's still difficult at this stage. There's not really too much to go on, but beyond matchups. Although we are starting to see some patterns. The Panthers just 2% rostered. Even after last week's heroics against the Falcons, where they racked up 23 fantasy points and are currently defense 6. So I'm a bit surprised they haven't been picked up in a few leagues. I mean, it's difficult to bet against them doing something similar in week 4, but they'll face a sterner test against that Patriots offense who've looked solid under May in the first 3 weeks. The Rams. Now, it surprised me that the Rams are 25% rostered. I think I see them as a top defense on their day. And they showed that against the Eagles last week until Jalen Hurts' 4th quarter heroics. They've averaged 9 fantasy points across the first 3 weeks. So they've been fairly consistent. Now, they do face the mighty Danny Dimes and the runaway train that is the Indianapolis Colts offense. But I expect the Rams to make life difficult for them. I think it's a challenge for that Indianapolis offense against a very good defense. And then the 49ers, 52% rostered. just inside the top 10 after week 3. They aren't quite the 49ers defense of old, dominant week after week. And they took a huge hit this week with Nick Bosa out for the season. That's massive loss for their defense. However, they'll still make things happen, and they're going to put pressure on T-Law and the Jags, who've made an underwhelming start to the season. I mean, the Jags got that win against the Texans week 3, but T-Law was QB 28 with just 20 completed passes and no touchdowns. So I fancy the 49ers to make life challenging for him week 4.
I think some of those percentages do show how people don't respond to defenses on waivers each week in the same way or to other players. You think the Rams, no, they've not been electric, but they've been steady. And if the Rams were a tight end, they'd have been picked up everywhere by now rather than 25% of leagues. Yet the Ravens, after -4, then 16 points and -2 points, and with the Chiefs this week, are currently 77% rostered and 56% of lineups leagues got plugged into lineups. So it shows that people don't necessarily think in quite the same way. No, we know they don't always put up the big points, but it can win you the week when it's down to a matter of small points, can't it?
Indeed.
Right, DFS time, and it is time to have a look at our secret stack. Now, if you have not tuned into the DFS show, our secret stack is secret because we keep it away from people, because if it backfires, you look stupid for having played it in the first place. But we have had some luck so far this year, principally our Daniel Jones and Tyler Warren stack in week 2, that looked like a daft idea, and it's really, really paid off in that situation. I always try to just look at a route where I can feel I can justify it when people are going, that's nonsense, I'm not playing that as a stack. So here is my approach this time. So this stack leaves you with £5,066 per player on Fantasy Game Day and $5,714 per player left on DraftKings. So it ticks the box of leaving you good value to spend elsewhere. It also ticks the box of I can explain a route to what I would like to happen and something I would just like to see happen. Jackson Dart is an unknown. We know that, but we also know there is going to be some rushing upside there. It's just a case of seeing how he operates in this offense. But on the plus side, he's an unknown. So he could give the Chargers defense some bother at that point. We frequently see quarterbacks coming in and that first couple of weeks have their kind of boom games, and then it settles down once people got a bit more of a read on them. Now, Malik Neighbors is the obvious pairing here. But the reason I'm going for Scatterboo is twinned with the fact that there's a lack of a strong tight end currently in New York, and Scatterboo's 6 receptions, 61 receiving yards last week is something I also quite like. If Jackson Dart ends up needing to dump the ball off a little bit more, which is possible for a first game start, then the Scatman is the guy who's going to benefit from that. And I'm also going for the fact that this is based not on data at all. It's based just on the vibes of the game. These are the sorts of starts where we get that headline moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a rushing touchdown from Jackson Dart at some point, and then a camera panning off to Russell Wilson pretending to be pleased for him at some point as well. New York can be fun to watch this week, hopefully. I think that's the key thing I'm going to take away from that. And at their price point, you're going to be wanting around 35 to 40 points out of them. It is a big ask, but if it comes off, you will not be keeping the stack a secret. It's a sort of stack you'll be screenshotting and showing people just how clever you were when you rake in their cash money. Now, Ed, I know it's always optimistic, but have I made a case to this potentially having a little bit of logic to it?
I won't be plugging that into many lineups, but good luck with it all the same.
You said that about Daniel Jones and Tyler Warren, and it worked out nicely.
Okay.
So that is all for our week 4 streaming options and a speculative punt when it comes to our Fantasy Game Day red hot picks. If you've not played Fantasy Game Day yet and you're in the UK, please have a go this week. Use promo code THFF1 to get 1 free play with your first paid entry. And then come and thank me on Monday when Scatterboo and Darts have romped to victory and got you in loads of points. Or we've hedged our bets. If it goes wrong, you can say Ed was right. We've got it all covered. We will be back there with our DFS show tomorrow. So if you want some more DFS goodness, please do check out our Red Hot Pick Show. But I think I've said all the things I can say. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, I'll let you call the taxi.
Malcolm, take us home.
You have been listening to the team from TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Twitter and Instagram.